You're listening to the Real Elevation podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hendricks, and here we discuss topics on personal fitness, well-being, and elevation of mind and body. Join us as we help build and grow a community of real, elevated men and women. If you're currently feeling frustrated, flat, and fed up with life, or want to be a physically and mentally elevated individual, you're invited to join us each and every week here on the Real Elevation podcast. Welcome to the RE family and get ready to elevate your mind and body. Welcome to the Real Elevation podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hendricks, and today we have another outstanding, informative, and elevating show for you. I'd like to welcome all first-time listeners to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. So happy to have you here. And as always, be sure to stay to the end of the show where I will be sharing all my social media links where you could connect with me and the Real Elevation podcast community. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you. We have another insightful and elevating and impactful show for you today. I'm sure you're going to enjoy. Now, I'm sure you will agree, we all know regular exercise keeps that waistline in check and the doctors away. But we know that when we get older, it's not just about getting those toned arms and those peachy bums. That's not really our main focus as we get older. They're all good things to have, by the way, good goals to work towards, but it's not just about that when it comes to our fitness. We want to be consistent with our exercise. And I want you to start thinking about your consistency is almost like a blue chip investment. So being consistent with your fitness, I see it as almost like a blue chip investment. And that compound interest that you're doing by being consistent week in, week out, it invisibly builds up over time. Yeah, it suddenly gives you a staggering return because you've been consistent over time. So just think of it like a saving account. You add £5 a day or £5 a week or £10 a week over a period of time, that is going to build up, and suddenly, because you've accumulated so much, it's going to give you a real benefit in terms of that interest. And I want you to see your fitness in a similar sort of way. So I'm going to talk to you today about uncovered and two unseen or unsung or unheard of ways that your fitness can really repay you. So if we think about it as a payment or repayment, that's what being consistent with your fitness can do. So the title of today's podcast is The Hidden Fortune of Fitness, the two unseen ways your workouts repays you handsomely. The hidden fortune of fitness, the two unseen ways your workouts repay you handsomely. Now, I might ask the question, why consistency matters, especially over the age of 45, 40. Now, we know as we age, our biology changes, especially after the age of 40. We know that when it comes to muscle protein synthesis, that can slow down, making it easier for us to lose that lean muscle and harder for us to rebuild it. We know that mitochondria can decline, and that has an impact on the way we produce our cells on an energy level, and that can obviously impact the way we perform and produce. And we know also as we age, we're more prone to our cartilage thinning, and that can raise the risk of mobility and also raise the risk of joints becoming injured. So we know by default, and if you think about me air quoting that word default, setting a gradual decline is normal. Yep. So as we get older, the default is to decline, things to deteriorate, things get worse. However, as you know, because you're a regular listener to the Real Elevation podcast, consistent fitness, consistent investment in your well-being, consistent focus on your physical activity helps to reverse that, helps to flip that script. And it's simply a way of signaling to your body, we are not getting old, we are not aging, we are doing what we can to slow or to deter this process down. And it can help us massively in terms of refill our energy levels. It can reinforce those connective tissues. It can help us get stronger, get more mental clarity, just by being consistent with our exercise. So, if we don't do that, it's like missing a week in that investment scenario. Yeah, there's going to be a week where you've had a gap and you're not going to get that same benefit in terms of putting in that £5, £10, whatever it is, into the bank account on a regular basis. So we need to make sure that we're doing that from a fitness and an exercise and a physical activity point of view. So let's look at some of the unseen ways being consistent with our fitness can really repay us back handsomely. So unseen way number 1, the energy dividend, as I like to call it, yeah, the energy dividend. So consistency rewires our mitochondria and our DNA, and it boosts the mitochondria in their numbers. We know, and you've heard me speak about this before, the more mitochondria that we have, the more adenosine triphosphate we have. And if you see that adenosine triphosphate as energy source, as the cash your cells will spend on every movement and thought. So the more mitochondria that we have, the more we can do, basically, the more cash in the bank, if you like. And we know that by keeping ourselves active, we can help boost that level of mitochondria, that DNA, that boosts their numbers, the amount of mitochondria that we have, and give us that more cash. The more cash we have, the more we can potentially do. Think of it like getting a higher salary or getting more money, but without having to work those extra hours. Yeah, have this money stroke bank stroke cash metaphor in your mind. Yeah, mitochondria is like the cash. The more we have, the more we can potentially spend. So being physically active, being consistent, being physically active will help us to do that. There was a study done by the Mayo Clinic comparing a younger population, so 30-year-olds compared with some 65-year-olds. And it showed that moderate to high intensity interval type training increased the mitochondrial capacity, so the cash that if you think that you can do, the cash that you can spend, it increased the mitochondrial capacity in the older group by up to nearly 70%, which was almost identical to the younger group. So what it was basically saying, that type of exercise specifically, moderate to high intensity interval training, it elicited the same sort of response in an older population as it did with the younger population. So in simple terms, doing specific type of exercise, in this instance, moderate to high intensity interval training, helped the older population, gave them that more cash to spend. So this is why it's important, and it's seen as an often overlooked way, overlooked benefit of being consistent with your exercise. That's why I call it the energy dividend. It pays us, it repays us when we're being consistent with our exercise over a period of time. So what can you do to help keep yourself active and maybe introduce some of this type of training? Now, if you've not done an exercise like this before, it's something that I would advise you obviously look to build up to, speak with a qualified and reputable coach or trainer to speak to them about the best way that you can do this according to where you are right now on your fitness and well-being journey. But one of the action steps that you can look to include is to do what I call micro bursts of exercise, or micro workouts, as you heard me talk about before. So doing things like brisk stair climbs, or even doing something that I've done recently with my clients is like shadow boxing, and just do that interval period where you'd work hard for 20-25 seconds and have a short rest for 10-15 seconds and then go again, and repeat this cycle. So you're working hard, then resting. That's a great way to do a micro workout to elicit that increased mitochondrial capacity, more cash in the bank, when you're doing this type of exercise. Another thing that you can look to do in terms of an action step is to set yourself a daily minimum motion or daily minimum activity level, as I like to call it. So set yourself a minimum. So for me at the moment, it's 5,000 steps. I've noticed that I've not been as active as I'd like to be. So I've set myself a minimum target of 5,000 steps a day. So even if that means after I've been working, doing all the chores, picking up the kids, dropping them off here, there and everywhere, if I've not done my 5,000, if it means going out after I've had something to eat with the family, just walk around the block with the dog to get those 5,000 steps targets met, that's what I do. So what is your daily minimum activity level that you can do to keep yourself active, keep yourself moving, keep yourself in that state of being consistent with your exercise? And also, when it comes to our diet and our nutrition, we need to make sure we're paying attention to that as well. And we need to mix the protein with the colour. We were talking about this in one of my cohorts recently about making sure we eat the rainbow. So understanding what your ideal metabolic type is, so which types of foods you are better suited for, and eating a wide spectrum. Opening up our bandwidth of foods when it comes to our choices can have a really positive effect. So we've talked about eating the rainbow, but we also need to make sure that we're eating the right type and getting the right intake of good quality protein as often as possible. We know that the mitochondria thrive on things such as amino acids, which are the building blocks derived from protein, and also antioxidants as well. So how is your diet at the moment? Can you look to make some improvements in that? I'm sure we all can if we break it down and analyze it, but there are 3 action points that you can do that's going to help you with that energy dividend. Yeah, micro bursts of exercise, keeping in mind about doing a daily minimum motion or daily minimum activity, and making sure our diet is on point. I can confidently say that if you look at action these 3 points, you will start to see the benefits in terms of that energy dividend and being consistent. Consistency is the key. You've heard me say many times before, and I'm sure I'll say it again before the end of the show. Your fitness without the right consistency and frequency is flawed and foolish. Yeah, so we need to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure we're not being flawed and we're not being foolish. So that's unseen way number 1. Unseen way number 2 is the cognitive compound interest. Now, we all like interest, don't we? When we're paying money to the bank, we like to see the interest doing its job and adding that a little bit on to what we already have in there. So if you think about this unseen way as this compound interest, we know that exercise promotes neurogenesis. So that's the growth of the neurons within our brain. And this boosts brain-derived neurotropic factors, sometimes called the miracle grow of the brain. So when we're promoting neurogenesis, we're basically looking at boosting the number of neurons that we have in our brain. And this is important because we want to have as much active neurons in our brain because it helps protect memory. So it diminishes or reduces the risk of certain types of brain or neurological diseases such as onset of dementia or Alzheimer's. It helps to sharpen our focus. It helps to improve and can help to regulate our mood. So we want to have as much of these neurons working, new neurons growing, and we know that consistent exercise promotes neurogenesis, which is essential for that brain health. There was a study done in 2023, a meta-analysis of the nature of human behavior found that adults engaging in 150 minutes of weekly moderate activity had a 30% lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia. So 30% lower just by doing 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise. Now, you've heard me say this 90 to 120 minutes a week of exercise, you can get back to looking and feeling your best, performing and producing without spending long, boring hours in the gym. 150 minutes a week, this was saying that you would benefit from a 30% lower risk of developing dementia, even if you started over the age of 50 years old. Yep, so if you've not been doing any sort of exercise for a long period of time, you've come to this point in your life, 50, 55 or older, it's never too late. That's often a real hurdle for some people in terms of mentally. They feel that they've come to a point where it's too late for them. They can't do it. But this is saying that is not the case. Now, what can you do in terms of action steps if you want to have this benefit, this unseen benefit, this cognitive compound interest? So slowing down this aging process that you might be exposed to if you're not involved in regular exercise. Action step number 1 is do a 10-minute natural warm-up. So before cognitive demanding tasks, like you might be sat down in front of your computer, completing a project, or you might be doing some assessment work, or you might be doing some sort of intense work that requires you to really be thinking and have your brain on point. Do some little exercises that's almost like it warms you up. We know the benefits of warming up before we do exercise. We can do the same when it comes to these neurally demanding or brain demanding tasks. Go for a little 10-minute, 15-minute walk, pick up some light kettlebells, get the body working. They all have been shown to help us peak the brain, get the brain focused and on point, ready for the tasks in hand. What we can also do as an action point is skill stacking sets. So what you can do after you've completed a workout, when you finish that workout, try something that requires an element of skill or an element of focus to it. So it could be something like, juggling or throwing the ball up in the air and catching it, or practicing some single leg balance exercises on a bosu, or doing some new martial art moves, something that requires a little bit more than just physical action. It requires you to be present and get your brain involved as well. So stacking your skills at the end of your workout. So after you've worked out 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, could you do a skill activity afterwards? That's going to help to just keep the brain on point, keep you focused. So doing that skill stacker is action step number 2. And another thing that you can do is what we call a mindful cool down. So at the end of your session, do some breathing. You've heard me talk about the power of doing breath work and being conscious with our breath and the benefits, but we can also do this at the end of our workout. Some slow diaphragmatic breathing whilst you're doing your stretching. This will help to reduce those cortisol levels that may have spiked in the workout that you've just done. And this can also help in terms of brain health, specifically the hippocampus region of the brain, and help prevent things like brain fog or slow brain activity. So there are 3 action steps that you can do to help you unsee or help you see that unseen way of that cognitive compound interest, that unseen way number 2. Now, it's incredible how when we specifically work our brain or get our brain to work, it has the immense power of helping us boost and produce and be more productive. Things like remembering names, doing tasks to a much higher level, making sharper decisions, especially when we're under pressure. So if you're in a work environment, you're a leader in your space. Often the people that I work with are high performers, leaders in their space, entrepreneurs, business owners. They have to be thinking all the time, making sharp decisions, decisions that's going to impact them and other people and the business as well. Doing these type of brain activities can help us to maintain that good, sharp focus. So we're not getting brain fog. We are performing and producing at our best. And these are things I talk to my clients about. So that is unseen way number 2, that cognitive compound interest. All right, so we've spoken about number 1 and number 2, the hidden fortune of fitness. 2 unseen ways your workouts repays you handsomely. So let's just quickly recap. We've talked about consistency is your age-defined investment plan. We've talked about putting money in the bank. We want to be consistently putting money in the bank. We know that over time, putting money in the bank is going to pay us handsomely. And that's what we want to do by being consistent with our fitness and our well-being. We want to be constantly adding to it all the time. We've spoke about that energy dividend, the benefits of being consistent, giving us energy, giving us that powerhouse, which is the mitochondria, yeah? Having cash, having spendable fluid cash that we can spend energy. The more cash you have, the more energy you have, the more we can do. And then we just spoke about there that cognitive compound interest. Yeah, exercise literally grows and protects your brain, and it diminishes and decreases your risk significantly of developing neuro-focused issues such as dementia and Alzheimer's, as I mentioned before. So you want to be making sure that we get that cognitive compound interest by being active, being consistent with exercise. So I trust you found that interesting and insightful. The hidden fortune in your fitness. As I mentioned at the top of the show, it's not just about being beach ready, having a nice peachy bum, having toned down. Yes, that is all very important. All nice things to have. But we know as we get older, if we're not making a point, taking time out to invest in our well-being and our health, we're going to expose ourselves to certain issues which we don't want to do. So what you can do this week for me as your call to action is pick one of these action points, yeah? So you could do a micro workout. Is that something that you've not been doing at the moment? Often people say they don't have time, but 4 minutes, just doing some step-ups or some knee-high lifts. So marching on the spot, something high intensity for a short period of time. Then you could do that mindful cool down with that breathing. Nice, big, deep diaphragmatic breaths. That's going to help feed the brain, help it keep it active and well. Yeah. Another thing that you can do is you can share your progress with us in the Real Elevation community. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes where you can join the community, either on our Facebook or on our private portal page. There'll be an invite there, and we'll cheer you on. We'll say, well done, recognize your efforts, simply for sharing that with us. Yeah. And remember, if this is something that you'd like to explore further, I'd like to hear from you. The door is always open to speak with people to help them on their fitness and well-being journey. So if you're a busy entrepreneur, business owner, leader in their space, over the age of 40, 45, and want to reclaim control of their fitness so you can produce and profit more without spending long, boring hours in the gym, so you have more energy, feel more body confident, look more attractive, whatever it is for you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. You can just email me the word fortune. I'll leave a link where you can get hold of my email address, and we'll arrange a time to speak, talk about you and where you are on your fitness and well-being journey and where you would like to go in the next 60 to 90 days. Remember, wealth isn't just about being rich in the bank. It's all nice to have millions of pounds in the bank. I'm sure you'll agree. But what's the point of having those millions of pounds if you don't have the physical capacity and the mental capacity to enjoy it? So it's key that we're doing our best to stay vital physically and mentally and spiritually as well. I trust you found today's episode elevating and insightful. And remember to invest wisely, stay consistent. Until next time, be well, be wise, be cool, be calm. Keep it real. Blessings and chi. Peace.